All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be volume 1 in a new series that I'm going to be starting called Ask and Ye Shall Receive. And yes, that is a play on words, especially pertaining to this topic in particular, that being Mr. Drew Pearson, the former star wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys from the mid to late 70s into the early 80s, finally getting his wish granted to him, that being that he will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm not particularly crazy about his methodology in getting into the Hall of Fame. He basically begged like an old bitch just to just to get considered. But the cat does deserve to be in the Hall. Why do I say that? Is it because I watched him play? No. I did not see Drew Pearson play. He was before my time. But just in watching many of his highlights and the way he was able to produce, particularly in the clutch for a great Dallas Cowboys football team in the mid to late 70s into the early 80s, you could see that he was clutch, he was dynamic, he had great hands, he had great breakaway speed, things of that nature. If he played today, he'd be a superstar. Please keep in mind that back in Drew Pearson's era, they played without gloves. They called the football without gloves. Yes, many of them use stickum, but stickum is nowhere near as adhesive as these football gloves that wide receivers wear today. I remember being a kid and how I first became knowledgeable about the history. How I first became knowledgeable about the history of the NFL was by watching old NFL Films video cassettes. And one of the most memorable NFL Films video cassettes that I saw as a child was a video cassette called The Great Ones. And it starred Jim Brown, Roger Staubach. I think they had Gale Sayers on there, maybe Terry Bradshaw. But in the segment about Roger Staubach, of course, I was struck not only by Roger Staubach's leadership abilities and his talent as a quarterback, but also the vast majority of the highlights he was throwing to this guy right here, number 88, Drew Pearson, including one of the most legendary plays in the history of the NFL, particularly in the playoffs, called the Hail Mary, where Roger Staubach, he went back to pass. He looked for Drew Pearson because it was a make or break situation. Drew Pearson was able to make the play. And according to the testimony of more than one person, Roger Staubach was saying the Hail Mary prayer to himself as he threw the pass. And that's where you get the term Hail Mary from. Drew Pearson was also the player who almost was able to nullify another one of the NFL's classic legendary big moment plays in the playoffs, that being when Joe Montana was able to connect with Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone. In the drive after that play, Danny White was able to hit Drew Pearson on a long crossing route across the middle, and Drew Pearson was almost able to break it for a touchdown that would have actually won the game. I believe he got tackled by the 49ers cornerback Eric Wright, if I remember correctly. But either way, Drew Pearson, he richly deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of wide receivers from that era in the 70s who get the short end of the stick because their stats were so different in that era because they threw the ball so rarely. But he definitely deserves what he got. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back to TMZ Sports. I'm Mike Babcock here with a very special guest, the newest member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the original number 88, Dallas Cowboys legend, Drew Pearson.
And let me also say this. A lot of wide receivers get the short end of the stick. Like basically, unless you were a superstar, it's very difficult for wide receivers to get in. There are a lot of receivers that I saw growing up who deserve to be in. I mean, who just simply deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And, for whatever reason, they're not in yet. It took John Stallworth many years to get into the Hall. Now, I didn't see him play, but he also was a great football player.
What's going on, brother? Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah,
John Taylor was a wide receiver that I saw play. Anyone who saw John Taylor play football knows that if you ever had a tandem of wide receivers who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, if you're going to have Lynn Swann and John Stallworth be in the Hall of Fame, you should have Jerry Rice with John Taylor, because they were as great a championship level wide receiver tandem as any tandem in the history of the NFL. And John Taylor played his position, but he was as talented as anybody. He just wasn't that super alpha type like a Jerry Rice.
On right here.
Look at that.
You see that? Yeah. I've been waiting to wear one of these for a long time, man. I finally got the opportunity to do it now, so I'm excited about that.
And it is so well deserved, and we're going to get into all the Hall of Fame stuff because I have questions for you, and I cannot wait to talk to you about that. But first, I got to ask you, Drew, about the biggest news in the Dallas Cowboys world. Dak Prescott finally getting that long-term deal in Dallas. He signs a 4-year, $160 million contract with $126 million guaranteed. Now, there is so much talk about this deal, Drew. Is it a good deal for the Cowboys? Did they overpay? You're the man. You know Jerry. You're friends. You know Dak. Thoughts on this $160 million contract?
Well, I'll give you my thoughts first, Mike Babcock, but I'll be expounding on it in the video that I do on Dak Prescott's new contract. What I have to say about it is this. It's very obvious that Dak Prescott was finally able to eat of the fruits of the tree that he himself planted. That's all I'm going to say about it for now, because this contract has resonances on multiple levels, not just on a 2-dimensional level, but also on a 3-dimensional level. On a 2-dimensional level, yes, Jerry Jones understands that, look, it's cheaper to keep her. We're not going to be able to replace Dak Prescott with another quarterback of his caliber, even though Dak is not a superstar. Teams don't let superstar quarterbacks go, as we can see with the situation that's transpiring in Houston between the Texans and Deshaun Watson. So it's not always about what you can get. It's really about what you have the option to get. You can look all day at the next woman, but does that woman want you? So many times you have to just stick by the woman that you have, especially if she might have certain qualities that you're not sure if the replacement or the potential replacement will have. So on a 2-dimensional level, that's why Dak got that contract. On a 3-dimensional level, Dak Prescott has shown that he's willing to do anything, and I mean anything, to please his overlords in the esoteric world that dominates professional sports behind the curtain.
Yeah, first of all, by him signing this contract and it becoming the lead story, no one's talking about me going into the Hall of Fame anymore. That hits the jackpot. That's pretty cool. But you know, the kind of situation where it's good for everybody. You know, maybe he's not worth maybe $40 million a season, but that's the market. That's the value. When we played back in the day, you know, I went on strike in '82 where we had a work stoppage to try to get these owners in the league to gain some respect for the players and the Players Association. And from then on, the salaries kept going up every year. And all we wanted then was a fair share of the gross revenues. And that's what these players are getting now, a fair share, a significant fair share of the gross revenues now. So, you know, it's a great deal for the Cowboys because they got the quarterback for the future that they want.
Now, I believe that Drew Pearson has also been able to start a very successful computer business, if I remember correctly. Now, I know that Roger Staubach went on to almost become a billionaire in real estate, but Drew Pearson has also been relatively successful in his post-football career.
It's a great deal for Dak because he got the years he wanted on the contract, he got the money he wanted on the contract, and he's still remaining the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. So it's all good all around.
Yeah, so, and no question, he is worth the money. He's going to bring in that $160 million plus so much additional revenue. How about from a salary cap standpoint, though, Drew? Are the Cowboys going to have enough money now to sign the players that they need so they can help Dak win football games on the field?
Yeah,
with the influx of revenue that the NFL expects to be able to attain, especially with the TV contracts, etc., that should not be a major problem.
It's got to be the question when you see these numbers. You say, well, what's it going to cost the Cowboys?
But let me say this. There has yet to be a team that signed a quarterback and made him the highest paid player in the NFL that has been able to achieve any real level of success when it comes to winning Super Bowls. That has not occurred as of yet. Now, Jimmy G came the closest a couple of years ago. But for the most part, when you see these quarterbacks who break the bank, their teams normally end up becoming similar to what we see in Seattle with Russell Wilson, hovering anywhere between 9-7 to as high as 12-4, and often one and done in the playoffs because they're too one-dimensional. So we'll see if that happens with the Cowboys.
In other areas, you know, as far as getting players around Dak and the rest of the team, especially the defensive side of the football, so that, you know, we can make a run at the next Super Bowl.
They needed to get this done, and that.
When you sign a quarterback for that much money, you better have great scouting, because you're going to have to draft extremely well in the secondary, at the second level with your linebackers, your defensive line, so on and so forth. And you're going to have to win within 4 years of drafting those players, because by the time it comes time to pay those guys, you're not going to have enough money in the coffers. You're going to have to let a lot of those guys go. Unless you have a very, very significant situation where the players love the chemistry so much that they're willing to take haircuts, like we're currently seeing to a certain degree in Tampa Bay, where Tom Brady, as usual, shows his unbelievable leadership abilities to get guys to want to do things that they would not normally do.
What they did, right?
Yeah, they needed to get it done. And you know, the Cowboys are pretty smart. That Mr. Jones over there, both the Joneses, Steven and Jerry, are smart. And doing this contract, they looked at everything, and they know what they have to do as far as maybe restructuring some other players' contracts so that this can fit in to what they're trying to do as far as salary caps are concerned. So I got faith in the Cowboys that they know what they're going to do. And even though if they have to restructure some contracts, they still have the opportunity to re-sign those players, you know, to come back on the Cowboys at a lesser, you know, salary. So, you know, we've been talking about this for about 3 years, to sign him back. And they finally got him signed and corralled him, and that's a good thing for the Cowboys.
I'm happy it's over, too, because I'm tired of listening to this bullshit. Like, I mean, no disrespect, but Dak Prescott, at best, is a second-tier quarterback. And the way the media was just going on and on about the situation, I mean, we know why that is. It's not just because of his prowess on the football field, but it's also because they want his name to be projected out there because he's playing the role of a major character esoterically. That's why he was willing to do some of the things that he was willing to do in order to advance himself, that I'll be specifying on and you know, extrapolating in my series pertaining just to him. I don't want to go into too much detail right now.
Let's talk about you now, Drew. You were one of the greatest players of your generation, and you had to wait 33 years, way too long, to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Drew Pearson was a great player. He was right there with all the best wide receivers of the mid to late 70s. Big-time playmaker.
You followed your journey over the last couple of years. And
also, of course, the first Dallas Cowboys wide receiver to make the number 88 famous. He wore that number before Michael Irvin and before Des Bryant.
We've watched
and of course also before CeeDee Lamb.
Break as you went through year after year of finding out you weren't getting in, and then to watch you get in this year, it was so emotional, man. What does it feel like, even still to this day, sitting here right now, Drew, to know you are about to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, you know, it's still a something that you don't believe is happening, you know. You feel it, you know. You feel something come over you when they tell you you got that nomination. You're going to be a part of the class of 2021, and you feel like a Hall of Famer, but you don't know how to act, you know. I kind of been walking a little different, with a little more pimp in my step and all that kind of stuff, you know.
This cat said he been walking more pimp in his step. You been slapping hoes, bro?
So maybe that's how Hall of Famers are supposed to.
I'm a Hall of Famer, bitch. Whap.
You know, so, but it's a tremendous feeling, a feeling of accomplishment. I reached the peak of the success of my career by going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So if they want to kick dirt on me now, go ahead and kick it on me. I'm good.
Drew, thank you so much for breaking down the Dak contract. And again, congratulations on making the Hall. Cannot wait to watch you inducted.
Right on. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. TMZ Sports.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Once again, congratulations to the brother. It's a peace.